Hi, it's Tracy from Two Rocks Tarot, and in this week's Tarot Tips and Tricks, I'm going to be talking about reading for yourself and reading while you're depressed. So back when I first started reading the tarot 28 plus years ago, there was a big taboo about reading for yourself, that you shouldn't read for yourself, that you should, because you wouldn't be able to be unbiased towards yourself, that what you're secretly hoping and wishing for will be transferred into the cards and it wouldn't be a true representation of what is actually happening in your life and the questions that you're asking. So of course I'm here to tell you that's a whole heap of crap. You can definitely read for yourself, and this is how I started all those years ago, because when I first picked up a pack of tarot cards, I was going through a very difficult time in my life. I was going through a divorce with my first husband. That was an abusive marriage, and I was with this man. I met him when I was 18, and we stayed together right up until I was 37. So it was a long, long time. And I really needed a friend. And of course, I didn't have any friends back then, because anybody who has been in an abusive marriage, or those who haven't, the first thing that they do is they isolate you. So they isolate you from your family. So they make things so uncomfortable and difficult that when your family does come and visit, they don't stay very long, they go, and then the visits come fewer and farther in between. Okay, friends disappear because they don't want to know your other half, and and they've got their own lives to deal with. So that's what happens. So I haven't got anyone from my childhood or from back then that I'm still friends with. I haven't got anybody. I really haven't, that from those times. And that doesn't bother me, because it's just some, shit happens. Things happen. So these were my best friends. This deck was my best friend. I didn't have anyone else to talk to. And I asked every kind of question that you imagine. Now, the only person that ever said that it was okay to read for yourself was the wonderful Mary K. Greer. And this is the second edition of this first book that she wrote. And I think it's a fabulous way to really get to know the cards. Now, I've touched on before about memorizing meanings and stuff like that I don't, that you shouldn't do that. But if you do need to do that, it's fine. So all these videos are designed to give you a different way of looking and approaching the tarot. So whatever I say doesn't mean that I want you to do, and that's how you should do it. Whatever resonates with you is the way to do it. So I just wanted to get that clear. But personally myself, I don't like memorizing keywords. Every time I look at a deck, it has a different meaning, relevant to the question that I asked. And also, I wanted to touch on this as well, that when you read for yourself, that the questions that you ask. So I just want to find, because I just want to find some things about this. I mean, this is so the questions that people were saying that you shouldn't ask are will I ever type of questions. Should I do this? Will I do this? Yes or no questions. It can go on and on. And I'm here to tell you that you can. I asked so many will I ever questions when I first picked up that little pack of magical cards that changed my whole life around, because that's all I had. I didn't have anyone that I could that I could talk to. I didn't have anybody that I could talk to. My parents are quite old. So I'm 54 and my parents are 87, 88. So, back then I had old parents, and I used to get teased mercifully for all that at school. Your mum's so old, your dad's so old, because nobody had kids back then when my mum did, when she had me at 36 years old. That just wasn't done. It's not like it is now. People my age are having children, God forbid why, but they are. So there was no taboo about it, but back then that was a very real thing. So so here's I'm going to read this question. This is back in 2003. So here I wrote, will I have enough money after I purchase Blackhall Street to buy some furniture? Okay, so this was my first home that I bought by myself after my ex-husband and I sold our house. And I had enough money to get a new house back then, but I didn't have any money for furniture. So that was a will I ever type of question. And What else was it? Will I have to use the whole $15,000 was another one, because that's all I got out of the sale of the house. And this is what I'm telling you. This is the I wanted to touch on this because people say that you shouldn't ask these questions, but by God, if you need to know these type of questions, ask them. What else was it? I just want to have a look because I really want you to know exactly what type of question. Here is a beauty. And this was in 2nd of the 3rd, 2003. Will I get married again? And I'll tell you the cards that I got, because I actually did get married again. And I got married on the 2nd of the 1st in 2004, a year almost to the day. And I got strength, and I got 8 of Pentacles, and I got the World reversed. So, and this is my words, so I got yes. I find this hard to believe. But strength to me means I will find it in me to love again, maybe meeting him at a new place of work or old one. Because I was thinking of the 8 of Pentacles. I think the World reverse shows that I'm wary of making the same mistakes. And that's exactly right. But now, in hindsight and looking at all these years later, the World reversed is kind of interesting because my now husband comes from New Zealand. And we live in the land of down under. So the World reverse was he flew from, left his homeland and he come to Australia. And it kind of makes me think that that's kind of how that actually meant. And he was also, when I met him, he was actually traveling a fair bit as well. And he was actually going to live in another country. And then he met me. And then we got married in 6 weeks. So we met and married within 6 weeks. Okay, now that is quite amazing. And I also wrote, because I didn't really want to believe when I read that, okay? And so now what I'm thinking about the 8 of Pentacles too is about learning. But even though I thought it was on the job, it was nothing at all like that. He was actually my across the road neighbour. Our 2 youngest daughters became friends. So they met at school. And because she was getting over cancer, a lot of the kids at school didn't make friends with her, and my youngest daughter felt really sorry for her, and they became the best of friends, and they still are. Well, now they're stepsisters. And so that learning situation was actually, it came about because our 2 youngest daughters met at school. So when you look back at things like that, and strength is, because I did nearly call off this wedding because I was really scared. I got cold feet at the last minute. So my next question after reading that, because I couldn't believe that I was going to get married again, was, should I get married again? And then I got strength, Queen of Cups reverse, and the 9 of Cups. And it's the Queen of Cups is who I associate with myself. Not so much now. Actually, I'm leaning more towards the Queen of Swords now. I've changed. But of course, the Queen of Cups reverse was me doubting myself, doubting in the love that we had for each other. So there you go. There are really questions of should I? And so the cards are, and it's got here like little prompt, the cards I received indicate to me looks like a will, 3 exclamation marks. I was like, I really couldn't believe it. So you can damn well ask these types of questions, and you can get the answers that you need to, even though, and I can't tell you how kind of stressed that I was when I first started reading the tarot, and when I asked these questions. I mean, it wasn't so stressed about asking about getting married again, but I was curious, but I was very, very sad. I remember being very, very sad when I did that particular reading, because I didn't think that I would be where I am now. Like, we've been married, we're coming up to 17 years together. So, it really was a happily ever after for me. But I wanted to really let you get into my mindset. I was very depressed then. I think I just started to take antidepressants back then as well. So I did write these things down. I asked these types of questions. Let's see, what else have I got? Because it's kind of interesting that I met him almost a year to the day when I got married again. I'll just see if there's anything else about them type of questions. A lot of them was about work, because it was really, really, really hard to where I lived in a small town in South Australia. There was not much work at all, but there's a lot of them clarifying money issues. I just want to see if there's anything else that I can read about these types of questions. I can't see anything now. These are all about achieving your goals. Anyone who's worked through this book will kind of know, you know, what Mary actually says in there. Oh, here we go. I wrote 15th of the 4th, 03. What does the future hold for me romantically? God, that was a massive spread to read. Have a look at this spread that I read all that way when I just started to read the tarot. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? So that's when I started to try and form the questions about what does the future hold for me. But sometimes you just really need to, you just need to say it like it is. So however you ask yourself questions in your, you know, in your mind or things like that, it's absolutely fine to talk that way to the tarot. You know, the tarot cards are yours to do what you will. They're not sentient beings with a mind of their own, or you know, or that sharp-tongued friend, although they can be. They can tell you like it is, definitely. But they are there to work for you and with you, not for you to try and fit yourself into that deck. Do you know what I'm saying? They're there to work with you, not against you, with you. So if you need to ask these types of questions that I did, by all means do it, okay? So then we're going to talk about reading while you're depressed, and you're just going to hear the garbage man come probably in the background now. And again, this is something else that was a big taboo, that people tell you that you should not read while you are in a depressed state of mind. Well, let me tell you, I was always depressed back then when I read, and I still got clear and concise answers. They say that if you read while you're depressed, that you'll see things a certain way, that you'll see things negatively, or you might see things as being overly optimistic as well, you know. So there's two sides of the coin. But I did not find that. The ones that I read out to you, I got the answers that I needed to get at that time in my life. I got the answers that I needed, asking questions in that way and being depressed. You can read in any state of mind that you need to, okay? When you're depressed, and if you've got no friends like I didn't have back then, I really needed to ask those types of questions. And there's some other ones that are too personal that I can't touch on. Very deep questions that I needed to ask of it. And they provided the answers for me. And now, you know, these last 17 years that I've been reading, you know, I'm really happy, you know, really, really happy. And I can honestly say that my readings have not differed to how I read when I was depressed, to how I read in a good, healthy frame of mind. It really, really didn't. When I read while I was depressed, I didn't get doom and gloom readings. I didn't believe that the worst was always going to happen, although I did not believe that I was going to get married again. I knew the card, you know, when you read something and it hits you right in the heart and you think, you know, I knew it was going to happen deep down, but I still didn't believe it. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really believe that I could be so lucky to meet somebody who would love me for who I am and not what they wanted me to be, but I did, you know, I did. So you can read while you're depressed, and you can be still unbiased while you're depressed. And sometimes while you're depressed, as it was for me, that's the only outlet that you have got, is to look in the cards. And I think when you are feeling like that, so down, you can get some really potent aha type of answers. You truly can. Now, for some people out there who are, you know, who do suffer from depression and other types of mental issues, you may find that you can't read while you're in that frame of mind, and that's perfectly fine. But what I'm trying to get across to you all out there is that you can read. Don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't do, you know, read while you are in that frame of mind. If you find that you still can, and for me, reading while I was depressed was a great comfort to me. I can't tell you how much it comforted me, because, you know, a lot of the times too when I read, I used to just ask, tell me what I need to know. And some of them were beautiful. They were just beautiful readings. So, you know, just don't let that stop you, you know, unless you really find it, you just can't do it. You know, there's nothing wrong with not being able to read while you are depressed. But for me, it was a big healing balm, and it helped me heal in many, many ways that I never thought possible. So it was good for me, but it might not work for you. And like I said before in all of these videos, is that you read the tarot the way you read it. You know, there's no right or wrong way to read the tarot. Whatever is right for you is the right way to read the tarot. And what's right for you might be wrong for me, and vice versa. There's nothing wrong with it. But I did want to touch on about reading with mental issues, because I hear a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say that you shouldn't read while you're like that, or you shouldn't read when you're drunk, you shouldn't read when you're stoned, which I have done, and you can get some bloody amazing readings. Let me tell you, you know, and when I look back, a lot of the times I was, because I had to use that to cope with my depression before I got put on antidepressants. So, you know, you can read in any frame of mind, you really truly can. And sometimes when you're under the influence of something, whether it be alcohol or drugs, that can really actually open up your third eye, because there's no barrier in there. You're just opened up. It's the only way I can say it. You're just really open to receiving when you're in that frame of mind as well. So, of course, I'm not advocating that everybody gets stoned or drunk while they read the tarot cards, but I just want to say that it's not taboo, and it can really open your mind up in ways and give you in very, very insightful readings. It truly, truly can. So I really wanted to touch on that, because it's something that I feel is not discussed enough in just in the tarot community at large, about reading for yourself. So it's perfectly fine. So don't let anybody tell you that you can't read for yourself. To me, it's the only way to learn. It truly, truly is. I think that you're much better off reading for yourself and learning that way than taking classes, because when you take classes, you're learning about somebody else's perspective on the tarot. You're learning about how they work with the tarot, how they touch on the tarot, what this card means, what that card means, but it's all from their perspective. It's not from you, you know. So for instance, for me, the Three of Swords, most people associate that with heartache and pain, and for me it's not. For me, the Five of Cups is that card. The Three of Swords for me means a new direction as yet unknown, and it's, you know, there's three different paths, and the little bit of hurt that you may be feeling is because it's just really the unknown. So whenever I see the Three of Swords, I know that I'm going in a different direction that I can't see as yet, you know, and I'm wondering, you know, what's happening. So that's what I mean. When it comes to classes, and I've never taken one, never ever, so I've only just, like everything in my life, I've taught myself. But you can't let anybody else tell you how you should approach the tarot, how you should read it, what tarot card means this and that. And I find that particularly with the Lenormand cards, there's this real stigma that you can't read the Lenormand intuitively, which is a load of shit. Let me tell you, I read it intuitively. I always have, because I picked up Titania's fortune cards, and they are completely different meanings to the traditional ones. There's only a little bit that's, you know, sort of got the same. And everybody who's had a reading from me using Lenormand loved it. So, you know, whatever I said resonated with them. And I didn't even hear of a grand tableau until about 6-7 years ago. So, you know, you can read anything intuitively. You've all seen me read crystals. You know, I can read anything. If there's a picture on it, I can read it. Believe me. So don't let anybody tell you how you should approach the tarot, how you should read it. It's fine to read while you're depressed, unless you truly, truly can't. But there's another thing I want to touch on about depression as well. So all of you know that my youngest daughter is bipolar. Now, both of my daughters dabbled in with the tarot, but they don't like it. They put it aside, and Sarah just said straight out she doesn't believe in it. But the thing is with her, when I tried to read for her, when she wanted me to read for her, I couldn't do it. And I think it was because her emotions, especially when you're bipolar, you know, high up one day and then, you know, you're down on the other one, depending on what type you've got. And that was her, very much deliriously happy one minute and then really down in the next. So I couldn't actually read for her because her emotions were so scattered that she couldn't focus enough for me to actually be able to read the cards for her. So that's another thing too. When you are reading for a depressed person, now you might not know that they are depressed, but you know, when sometimes you try to read for someone and you think, God, this is hard. Why can't I, you know, nothing's coming to me. Why can't I read? I'm getting all sorts of conflicting meanings and if you see things in your eye like I do when I read, but back then I didn't, but when, you know, if you're one of them type that, you know, can see things, smell things and hear things, and you're wondering why you're getting all these conflicting meanings and association with the cards, it could be because they are depressed and they're not focused enough and not calm enough to be able to project what they really want to know. Okay, so that might be a reason. So if you're struggling to read for certain people in your life or strangers and you're wondering why, it could be because they are depressed. And if you're finding it really hard to focus and you can't, you might have to ask them in a way, we can't sort of really flat out ask, are you depressed, or, you know, or they have these, or I know I've said a lot of, are you okay? Because what's the first thing that people say when you ask them, are you okay? I'm fine. And that's exactly what I used to say when I was depressed. I'm fine. I never ever had any counselling or anything like that for my depression. Like everything, I coped with it myself. So, you know, it's no use asking that question. So if you are in a tarot reading with someone and you really cannot connect with them, you might just have to say, is there something troubling you? Because I'm finding it hard to connect with you. I'm finding it hard to answer your concerns, particularly if they say they just want a general and there's no, you know, because I can't tell you how many times I get that. And I only read online, so I don't read face to face, so I don't get to see people's expressions, their emotions or anything like that. And sometimes that's all I get when I get a tarot reading is general. So I've got no idea what they want to know, so I just have to you know, just shuffle the cards with their name, because that's all I've got is their name. Shuffle their card and I think of their name while I'm shuffling and lay out the cards. So if you're face to face, you can actually ask that. You can actually say, you know, I'm having trouble connecting to you. Is there something troubling you? And asking in that way, they should open up to you. And if they don't open up to you, then you might just have to say, look, I just can't read for you at this time. We might have to make another appointment. That might actually open the doors a little bit and they'll speak to you. But sometimes it won't. Sometimes, and you know, if that had been me and someone had asked me that, I would have just got up and left, because I just could not talk about things like that. So you're probably going to ask me too, has that happened to me on online readings? And it actually hasn't. I actually have never had a person that I couldn't read for online, and I'm talking about when I'm reading online. So most of my clients are in America and all over the world, because I read for a company online, you know, for an actual company online. So they're all over the shop, but I've never had trouble connecting. But I have had, sometimes I've done readings of quite a few, and it's really hard. It's really difficult for me, okay? It's difficult for me to do the reading, but I persevere, I take breaks. Now, usually I don't take breaks when I read. I just read it and I just type it out and that's it. But sometimes I'll sit back and I'll think about it. And when I actually give the reading to the client, and I actually say to them, I had real trouble doing this actual reading. Or sometimes I don't even say that. I have said it a couple of times, and one lady said, I'm really glad that you said that, because it was really hard for me to actually ask the question that they were asking. And the ones that I send them off and I'm thinking, God, that's crap. I don't know if I really like that reading. And then they come back to me and they say, that was such a good reading. So there you go. So sometimes, you know, even though, you know, like for me, I don't see anybody, and if I find the difficult reading, and sometimes I feel like the reading's not all that great, and every time I think the reading's not great, I get really good feedback on it. It's really, really funny. I go fear. So it's not, it's a different thing when you read online. I don't know how it is, like you connecting, you know, you connect to their energy in some way, but I could not read for my youngest daughter, and I never read for her. Like, she's moved to England, and if I'm worried about her, I still won't, because I just don't, because I respect her privacy, so I never read about her. And I, probably now, because she's very, very stable, I could read for her and about, but I just don't do it because she doesn't like it. As simple as that. So I suppose to round it all up is that it's quite all right to read when you're in that frame of mind, as long as you can, because some of you out there just might not be able to do it. But I don't want you to think that you shouldn't do it just because you're not feeling right. Okay, you can do it. You should do it. Try it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I just did not want anybody to think of this taboo that you shouldn't read for yourself and that you shouldn't actually read when you're mentally unwell, because sometimes it's just what you need. And that's what it was for me. To me, it was the biggest healer. I can't even tell you how much those 78 bloody cards helped me throughout my life, especially when I was coping with what I was back then. I had some really heavy shit going on, and they were the only things that kept me sane, because I could see that there was going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. It ended up being a year away, but I've never looked back. I never looked back. And I remember saying to my youngest daughter once, I don't even think about my first marriage now. And I was with him for a long time. I said, I don't even feel like I was even married to him, because I feel like I've been married to Aaron forever. I really do. He's my soulmate. And I said to her, it's only when I look at you two that I realise that, hey, yeah, I was married before and I had a couple of kids. That's how much my life has changed. I don't even think about that part of my life anymore. I really don't. But I just really wanted to touch on it. It's really, and as for personal readings too for yourself, I really think this 1 card a day and 3 cards is really kind of a shitty idea. I think that you should pull as many cards as you feel comfortable with pulling. So I'm not talking about pulling out, like 21 cards or anything like that, but pull out, a decent amount, about 6 cards or whatever, 10 maybe at the most. Pull out a few, don't just try, because if you're like me, this 1 card a day, I wasn't happy with it. I wasn't patient with that. And anybody who's actually worked through this book will know how difficult it is and how elaborate some of her spreads are. And I did them all. I did the whole damn thing, and I only just started then. I was at the very beginning of my tarot journey. So, because that's 2003. So, I was still at the very beginning. So I was reading a few years before that. I can't give you an exact number of years that I was reading, because a lot of the times that I was with him, I've blocked out of my head, because I don't think about it. Who wants to? So I kind of blocked it out. So I can't give an exact time, but I was thinking, because my youngest daughter will be 29 this year, and I do remember reading when she was about a year old, and I pretty much think I've started when she was born or something like that. I can't remember, hey. I think she was about a year or two when I started. So probably 28, 29 years. I'm not really sure now. It's hard for me to think right back at those sort of times. So, try the elaborate spreads. I think if you dive deep into it, because I haven't got patience, and for me, that was driving me nuts, just a couple of cards a day. So dive into it. Dive right into it and pull as many cards as you want to learn the tarot. And also, I'll give you a tip. I've said it before, but when you're doing cards about your day, do it at night. Pull the cards at night, because then you're not trying to... Because if you pull the Tower at the beginning of the day, you're going to think you've had a crappy day, when all it could mean is that, a pile of boxes fall on you at work or something like that, or a table collapses, or you watch somebody trip over, at the train station or something like that. That's a Tower moment. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a really bad day, but if you pull that at the beginning of the day, excuse me, it's going to be at the back of your head. Oh God, I'm going to have a crappy day. And if you think like that, what you think you put out, and what you put out comes back to you, and you might have a crappy day. However, if you pull it at the end of the day and you look at the Tower and you think, oh yeah, that I made a cake today and the cake collapsed. That's what it means. It can be mundane things. Major cards can be mundane things. So if you do like to you want to do daily readings for what's happening in your day, pull them at night, and you'll find that you'll learn a lot more by pulling them at night, because you haven't got any expectation of what the day is going to bring. You'll be able to look at the cards with a open mind, and you'll be able to think about, what happened in your day, and then you realise, oh yeah, you know, this and this happened, and then you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see the cards a lot more clearer if you pull them at night. You truly will. But don't be afraid to dive in deep when it comes to the tarot when you're first starting. You know, ask them type of questions. There's nothing wrong with it. Use more than one card a day. Just do whatever you want. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to get across, is do whatever you want when it comes to reading tarot your way. Oracle cards your way. If you like to scry with crystals, read the crystals your way. Just do it your way. Whatever your way is right. Okay, don't let anybody ever tell you it isn't. You saw the examples of the questions that I asked back then. You know, I really, you know, I just can't tell you how many types of them questions that I asked, but and I didn't find that it was detrimental to the way that I read. I didn't find that it made me any more depressed when I was reading. It really helped me. So don't be afraid to read if you are depressed. Truly don't be, you know. Give it a go, and you might find, like me, that it's a real balm to your soul, and it will really work for you. So I think I've touched all that I can on personal, you know, reading personally for yourself. It's not such a big thing then, but back when I first started, it was a bit of a taboo that you shouldn't read for yourself. It truly was. So in this Tarot to Yourself, she did say 20 years ago when she wrote it, it was a bit of a mind-blowing thing for other people, but you know, it's the gift that it gives you. I mean, tarot is a gift that just keeps on giving. It truly is. It's really, you know, changed my life in so many ways for the better. I couldn't even describe it. I suppose if I had to describe tarot in one word, it would be magical. It truly is. So don't let anybody put you off your own magical trip when it comes to the tarot. So until next time, this is Tracy. Please press like and subscribe and that notification button, and I shall talk to you all again soon.